Let's move on to our next topic, engagements. So as you can guess, baiting plays a huge part in engagements. Baiting is one of the most important things in this entire game mode. One-on-one combat in any game is literally just a series of baits based on your situation, your knowledge, your positioning, experience. Engagements are all just a combination of these fundamentals. It's about outsmarting your opponent in any way possible. Your goal in an engagement should be to use the enemy's knowledge of the fundamentals to your advantage. With your own experience, you can imagine the possibilities the enemy could do given the situation that they're in. Doing this baits them into a sense of false security, giving you an advantage. Convince them they are the one with the upper hand, and don't play your cards until you're certain you have a shot. Now, there are various forms of baits, but they all pretty much come down to two things: knowledge and capabilities. Be careful though, because although you might have the knowledge to outplay an enemy, that does not mean you have the mechanics or the capabilities to act on that knowledge. You should always try to be confident when outplaying someone, but play based on your own limitations. But even if you do fail when acting on that knowledge, always be prepared for anything. Make the most of any given situation. Improvising is an extremely useful skill in engagements. So if you really think about it, so many things can be classified as a bait. And that's the way you should look at each engagement. Let's look at some examples. Pretending to disengage. You can act like you want to back off, putting the person out of position. You could do this to get them in range of a certain ability, or get closer to you when you have a specific relic up that they aren't expecting. We could pretend you don't have a cooldown up, things like that. Baiting off of relics, buff timers, cooldowns, and passives. You can bait relics, disengaging the moment they pop thorns or something, bait them to use a relic when they don't really need to. You can bait them off the timer of a buff, catching them off guard. You can bait off your own cooldowns, Chronos Pendant and Genjis, for example, when they think your abilities are still on cooldown. The same goes for abilities and passives, baiting someone into fighting you when your passive is up, with Pele, for example, and you out-heal them. Baiting off of items themselves or item passives. If the enemy hasn't seen you, you could engage them with a full item, or a tier of an item that they wouldn't expect. You could bait them into fighting you when an Azzy passive goes off, or BANCROFTS gets lower. You could bait them with the damage that they take from Nemean, the list goes on. Baiting around a corner, juke baits. You could hide around a corner when a person is going to jump, and then make them go the opposite direction away from you. You can change directions based on the knowledge of cooldowns, or anticipate a jump beforehand so you can escape. Baiting with early game minion damage. There is a countless number of baits in this game. So as you can see, there's just so many types of baits in this game mode, and it's practically impossible for me to go over all of them. Honestly, I naturally do this based on my own experience in Duel, so it took me a while to actually put into words how to properly bait. I found that the easiest way I could do this, and drill it into your head, is to show clips of different baits and show how important they are. I don't normally mention in my videos when I do bait someone. It's something that people do in general without even thinking about. So the next time you're watching one of my videos, just pay attention to why I do certain things in engagement, and you'll start to catch on your own a lot more easily. So, without further ado, let's go over a ton of different clips that I collected from my videos and explain how the baits work. So as you can see, I got red buff and ulted away from his own ults. I ulted directly on top of him, making him think I was going to take the fight since I was going to pick up that red. The moment he thorns, I immediately mez him and disengage. Knowing that he's going to have full intent to fight me because he used his thorns, I time the duration of the mez and I know when he's going to come out of it. I keep walking and turn around the moment the mez runs out, making him jump in the complete opposite direction, allowing me to escape the engagement with ease. In this engagement, I'm in a tight spot running away from a Bellona to the safety of my tower. I ult for Peel, but I know her ult is up, so the moment I hear the audio cue for her ult, as well as a little bit of prediction, I'm able to knock her up in her tower and get the kill. In this fight, I plan on 3ing him and then just 2ing him, but in a panic, I realize that I don't have enough mana, so I Aegis and retreat to the safety of my own minions. Since he still aggroed me, the minions finished him off. Here I dash into some minions to finish them off with almost a full passive to fight him. He uses his thorns and I pretend to back off for a split second. In doing so, it allowed me to wait for my 1 to come off cooldown, making me able to brace for the damage I take from the thorns. It also made him come closer to me, making it easier for me to hit my autos. Multiple baits go down in this fight. First off, as you can see, he's backing. At the very end of his backing animation, actually, I realize that if I don't land now, he's going to be able to back before I can actually hit him. Him, knowing this, dashes my ult and immediately turns on me. I retreat from his tower and silence him, making him think I'm just silencing him to survive. Instead, I do it because I know based on experience that an auto attack combined with a 1 is enough damage to kill him. This, as most of you know, is a difficult bait to pull off, but is one of my absolute favorites. As you can see, we just finished an intense engagement. I make it seem like I am backing up to clear the wave, and I'm scared to fight him. I know he had just used his dash, so the moment I bait him into the range of my jump, I flick my camera and jump on him, securing myself the kill. I call this the double back bait. Kinda baited him there. This is a simple example of an item bait. I know full well that Hades' abilities are down, so once he ults me, instead of beadsing or cleansing it, I allow him to get me low. This allows me to use my abilities with an almost fully stacked BANCROFTS, making me deal way more damage. This is a simple example of a relic bait. I hold my bracer for longer than him, making him overextend, so when I use my own, I'm able to kill him. I catch the Loki off guard and manage to stun him out of his invis. Knowing he's going to react to my jump by thinking I'm about to land on him, he thinks the best course of action would be to ult over the wall, making me unable to jump after him. This allows me to land on him immediately and secure the kill with an auto attack. This is an example of a positioning bait. I use the fact that I missed my 2 as a way to make him think that I have a reason to disengage. In reality, I use that fact to make him move forward, and immediately turn and get myself behind him just the slightest bit, allowing me to push him outside of the tower and secure the kill with my ult. He's a very simple bait. Turning you back to the enemy makes them think that your focus is not on them. Waiting for them to use an ability to clear, I immediately react by turning and using my abilities to catch him out of position. Here we have some improvising. I'm well aware that I don't have time to use a full combo to kill the Poseidon under tower. But while under tower, I do as much possible damage as I can and then immediately disengage. Poseidon, thinking I'm completely retreating, puts himself ever so slightly out of position. I recognize he might do this and quickly flick my mouse back and get the kill. I catch this Poseidon trying to check if I'm on bold even. I 2 and then silence him, making him panic thinking I'm going to 1 him. He places his whirlpool below him. I disengage and blink at the end of the duration of his 3. I 1 and auto him, putting him in range of my ult. I'm completely aware that he's going to bracer it, but I'm going in the air just as a precaution in case he decided to ult me there. Putting myself in the air also gives me time to wait for my own cooldowns, but instead, since Genji's procced, I knew 1 combo with the silence would be enough to kill him. And his Kraken wouldn't even be enough to kill me, so I didn't have to Aegis either way. Here I'm doing red buff, and Thanatos doesn't realize I'm actually close enough to hear him ult. I bait him into thinking I don't know what's coming, and prepare my own ultimate to counter his. I then activated off the sound cue of the Thanatos ult. Hope you guys learned a thing or two from this group of random examples that I put together. I try my best to find a bunch of unique engagements to give you guys a decent idea as to what I mean. What I honestly recommend though, is that you always question things when you play in the back of your head. Just like the mentality portion that I mentioned near the beginning of the guide, mentality can just do wonders. The next time you watch my videos, or if you're just trying to learn, or if you're just playing on your own, just try to recognize what you did in an engagement to make it go right or even wrong. Try to analyze each situation and take something from your experience. Eventually, I'm not even kidding, after you start doing this, it'll start to become natural to the point where you don't even have to think about it. Which is why putting into words this portion of the guide was a little difficult. So just improvise and adapt, that's the ticket. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this portion. Next up we'll be talking about the Bull Demon as well as ending the game. Alrighty, now we're moving on to the final portion of the guide, ending the game. A lot of people have struggled with this due to camping. Luckily for us, the Titan has reduced HP and does a lot less damage to players now, so it's easier to actually end the game. Before we get into this though, let's talk about the Bull Demon. Honestly, this shouldn't take too long to explain. If you've ever played Duel before, you probably know that Bull Demon is just an objective that shuts down the enemy tower Phoenix for a period of time. It's extremely useful for a number of things, as you can imagine. Let's go over the uses for Bull Demon in Duel. The most basic one is to kill it so you can pressure an objective, plain and simple. Another one would be to use your knowledge of rotations to bait someone out of the Phoenix. You could use a Sentry Roar to stop their vision if they're warding, and then you could just proceed to hide around the corner and wait for them to move up a bit. This is the most basic strategy for dealing with campers. Sometimes you have other options though. If the enemy can very easily escape you and you can't pin him down by ganking him, an option you could do if you're ahead enough is to just do the Bull Demon and attempt to outsecure the other person. There's more upsides and downsides to this as long as you don't lose too much health. 1, they'll be out of position trying to stop you and you can gain pressure off of it. 2, you could succeed in outsecuring them on Bull Demon. 3, they steal it and overcommit to stealing it and you get a free kill. Even though they got Bull Demon, a kill could give you the chance at his objective. Worst comes to worst and he gets it, as long as you're healthy, you can fight him or he'll run away. Either way, they can't really push any your objectives since they're camping, so they don't gain very much off of it. So those are pretty much the major uses for Bull Demon, but let's go over actually doing it. The Bull Demon has a few physical attacks and then a special attack, which is magical damage. The characters that struggle the most with killing it are some mages and guardians. Gods that can't consistently DPS kind of get messed up by it. There isn't much but one tip for Bull Demon, and that is to just keep your distance to take as less damage as possible. This is easiest for ADCs. Start it and back up. As it does its special, continue to DPS, but start moving backwards again so that he has to walk up to you, and that's pretty much it. The only other really big tip for Bull Demon is something that I mentioned in a previous topic, is that you can actually see auto attacks when they're hitting it from a distance. And that's pretty much it. It's a simple objective with a simple purpose. So let's move on to actually ending the game. Keep in mind, I didn't feel the need to go over how to actually defend when the enemy is ending the game because I felt as though it would kind of be pointless, as the information I give you here can be applied in reverse to use for defending. There are a few main skills that help the process of ending the game. Knowing how to properly poke the Titan as much as possible without taking needless damage is an extremely important skill to have when ending the game. A friend of mine has a term for this called flirting. When you flirt with the Titan, you basically just want to get in any form of damage that you can whenever it's beneficial to you. For example, after winning a trade, it forces them to retreat to their fountain. Or when they're focused on the wave, flirt with the Titan as much as possible, and hey, you never know, you might seal the deal. Another important skill to have when ending the game is just straight up knowing when you have the opportunity to end. With the recent changes to the Titan duel, the Titan is very vulnerable to being killed without even having to fight the enemy player. Front dooring would be a good term for it. When doing this, it's preferable to try and bait out cooldowns, especially crowd control ones, before attempting a front door. Finally, ending after killing the player. For the purpose of this guide, we'll call it the last kill. You'd imagine that this doesn't take much thought, but there's actually another element to these endgame fights. When the Phoenix is down, the enemy will forcefully take fights they shouldn't. Taking fights like this are most opportune because it can actually force the enemy player to take very bad fights in desperation, due to the threat of the possible death of their Titan otherwise. This fight can be very good for you, but be careful, don't overcommit to these fights, as the player will be giving everything they have for a chance to kill you and make a comeback. This is an ample opportunity for you to bait out certain relics or ultimates, making it even easier for you to end. Let's talk about some other key factors in ending the game. Positioning. Most times you typically want to put yourself parallel to the wave and your opponent, so they have to either focus you or the wave. Normally, you can get a bit of poke in before they try to body block your damage to the Titan. Keep your distance so that if you do take aggro, you can retreat out of range of the Titan. This strategy allows you to more easily poke out the enemy player and force them back, or get significant damage to the Titan. Be careful not to overcommit though. Remember, the enemy can easily retreat to their fountain to heal, while you might not have sustain. Time your waves and be cautious with your positioning. Cooldowns. You want to bait cooldowns, but also manage your own, so you don't get caught off guard while trying to end. The enemy's cooldowns will either be spent trying to poke you or clear the wave, so this is very opportune time to deal some damage to the Titan. Make sure to have a few abilities though in case you get into a sticky spot or misplay so you can get yourself out. It's usually a utility ability like CC or movement, but damage works too if they can be threatened with a death. Damage. Understanding how much damage you deal and how much you're able to take. Basic examples. A. Getting effective poke on the Titan without losing important cooldowns like beads to only deal 200 damage. B. Focusing the Titan with the intention of killing it before you die while the enemy is free casting over you. NPC mechanics. Titans take less damage from specific items comparatively to others because some item passives just don't work on the Titan. Expect to deal less damage with certain items and passives. For example, Kins, Titans, Crit, Runeforged, these things don't apply on the Titan. Ironically enough, Titans doesn't actually work on the Titan. Ironic, right? Base healing is unaffected by anti-heal and Aegis still heals you in base. Titans reset HP if they leave combat, so keep that in mind. Use minion aggro to your advantage at all times. Archers are particularly useful when ending, as they don't move and force the Titan to walk up to kill them, giving you more time to damage the Titan. Phoenix respawn. Assuming if you are trying to end and you already have the Phoenix down, that said Phoenix is going to respawn, so you have to make preparations for it. For example, getting Bull Demon, getting wards, pushing the wave at the right moment so the opponent is overwhelmed with having to clear, so you can just hit it as they clear the wave. Things like this. There are other measures you can take if you're in the opposite position to try and defend your Phoenix after they take Bull Demon. You can zone waves behind their tower when the creeps spawn, or you can just fight them and try to buy time. This is especially easier if they're a mage, because their basic attacks don't do as much damage. And hey, that's pretty much it in terms of ending. Well, that's it. That's the end of the guide. I sincerely do hope you enjoyed this guide and maybe learned a thing or two. I tried my absolute hardest to put as much information as I could in this, and it took me a lot of work. I know I may have missed some things, but hey, feel free to mention it and talk about it in the comments. Honestly, if I continued to keep adding things as they came to mind, this guide would have never come out. I kept adding things and thinking of other concepts to add to the guide, and kind of put myself in a spiral of worrying about things that I didn't include. I put a lot of thought and effort in this, so it would mean a lot to me if you left this video a like and consider subscribing. I'm considering making a separate part in the future where I can give you guys more information if it comes to mind, so if you do have any information you think is useful and I missed, please be sure to discuss it in the comments. Anyways, I will see you in the next video, guys. I hope you all have a fantastic day and enjoyed the guide. Bye-bye.